Welcome, everyone, to It's Time to Excel. I'm so excited that you have decided to join me today. And for those that come into the replay, make sure you go ahead and drop in a few comments because it's always fun to kind of see who's all out there and how that we can network and grow together. Because, of course, this is our time. This is our time to excel and inspire and ignite the possibilities that are all around us. So I want to thank you for taking this time. And we're going to talk about, of course, my favorite subject. Of course, it has to do with money. And looking at that and kind of looking at talking to some of my clients here. And there's been some confusion. So I thought this was a perfect opportunity to take today and actually look at some of this and kind of look at why all too often growing businesses, especially small business owners, as they grow, what ends up happening is, yes, your revenues are increasing, but your bank account is decreasing. And somehow that just seems really crazy. And yes, in some ways it is. In some ways, not so much. And that's what we want to talk about today. So, as I said, welcome to It's Time to Excel. We are here every single Wednesday at 11:30, and we have different guests that pop in. We have different opportunities to learn and to grow because we want you to be successful. And that is the ultimate goal, is for you to be successful and excel in your business. So, with that being said, let's dive into today's topic. And this one is what's going to make all the difference? And that boils down to understanding revenues versus profits, because that's the biggest reason why growing entrepreneurs they're going crazy. Their revenues are increasing, money's coming into their bank account, but their bank account balance keeps going down. And I think a lot of it boils down to this one thing. So today we're going to focus on revenue versus profits. And as we're thinking about that, we need to understand what is going on. So let's go ahead and jump on over to here and have an opportunity to really figure out what these differences are. So I'm going to go ahead and get this slideshow started. And as you can see here, we are talking about revenues versus profits. And understanding the difference makes all the difference in your business. That being said, let's really tackle this and take an opportunity to understand the differences. And of course, Winston's going to chime in here too as well, just to kind of give us a clue because, this is really important. So he's going to get in here as well. And he's going to remind us how important it is understanding the difference between revenues and profits. So taking a look at that, let's dive straight in. All right. All too often, as I'm working with new business owners, especially those that are just kind of getting started, they're hustling, they're running full speed ahead. And they are looking at all these revenues coming in and all this money going into their bank account. And then all of a sudden they look at their bank account and they're like, wait, what happened? Wait, what happened? Something didn't quite work as planned. And what is that? Well, what that is it boils down to one of the biggest problems that face small business owners. So let's take a look at this. So let's take a step back. Odds are against small business owners. Because all too often, in that first year of business, you know how many fail within the first year? 20% of businesses will fail within the first year of business. And that number gets even worse when we start talking about in the first 5 years. So really, odds are not against us. So how can we do something about that? Because if the odds are against us, there's a lot of benefits to being a small business owner. And part of that boils down to understanding this key concept between revenues and profits. Once we understand them, then we can take proactive approach to make sure it works for us and not against us. So taking a look at this, why is this? Why do small business owners fail so often? What's the challenge that they're facing that they're struggling to overcome? You guessed it. You absolutely guessed it. It boils down to cash flow, understanding cash flow, understanding money in, money out, and how all of this craziness works together. And it's definitely a problem. And it can be a problem, but it doesn't have to be. Because of those businesses that fail, 82% of them admitted in a U.S. bank study that the failure was due to, you guessed it, the inability to manage their cash flow. So what can we do about that? What direction can we go? How can we move forward when the odds are against us? Well, you came to the right spot, because it is definitely your time to excel. And how are we going to do this? We're going to get the support from folks that have a little bit different understanding and can actually work together. When we blend the strengths together, we all succeed. And that's exactly what we're going to do, because I don't like that number. So what are we going to do to fix it? Because the last thing I want it to be is money coming back to bite you. Your business can be successful. Your business can grow. Your business can not only grow, it can scale. And yes, that's another topic for another day, growth versus scaling. That's another topic that we will talk about. But the last thing is, I don't want it to come back and bite you because of the inability to manage cash flow. I want to put the tools in your hands. I want to give you those tools. I want to support you in the direction that we can go, because we want to excel together. Because as I said, I don't want it to come back and bite you. So what are we going to do about that? What are we going to do? It all boils down to starting back to basics. So we're going to cover one of those topics today. And of course, that topic today is revenue versus profits. Understanding the difference, because that difference makes all the difference in your business. So let's get started. Let's really dive into here. We are going to talk about revenues. We are going to talk about profits, what those differences are, understanding those differences, and what we can do to make sure that we are successful going forward. Because if we're not, and if we don't get our hands around this money problem or this money challenge or whatever you want to call it, really taking understanding of this money, the bottom line is it's going to lead to being stressed when there's no money to pay the bills. Because all of a sudden you're going to go into your bank account and you're going to try to go, because you've been running ragged and those revenues are coming in and this is fabulous, except when you go to write the checks out, there's not any money in the bank account. There's no money left to pay the bills. Well, that's not good. That's not good at all. Even worse yet, you're running ragged, working day and night to grow your business, and yet there's still no money in the account. That is not okay. And more importantly, if you're in business, I suspect you're in business so your business can support your lifestyle. And if you've been going crazy, there's no money to pay the bills, you're working day and night just to try to get all these revenues in, but yet there's no money left in the account, guess what? There's no money left to pay you either as the owner. That's not okay. That's not okay, because when you deal with all of that, the bottom line is you are going to be completely and utterly stressed out. All of a sudden, you've worked so hard, and all you have left is stress. But here's the best part. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be this stressful. Of course, you're juggling a lot of hats. As a business owner, you've got lots of balls up in the air. You got lots of hats up on top of your head, and that's okay. We're going to just focus on one little hat today, and that's our revenues and our profits, because understanding that will definitely make all the difference. So where in the world do we start? Because what ends up happening, and I'm sure at this point in the game, you have all these tools. Here's the problem with that. Are you using the right tools in the right fashion for the right service? I don't know, but this picture often comes to mind. You've got tools in your tool belt. Are you using the hammer to put the screw in, or are you using the wrench to pound in the nail? That potentially is not going to be the best option. And yet so many business owners run into this same exact entanglement. They have these great tools. They're using all these great functions and softwares and this and that, and they're using a hammer to drive in a screw, or they're using a wrench to pound in the nail. Now, will it work? Of course. My dad was a firm believer. In fact, he created his own tools. He used to use a screwdriver with a very incredibly hard handle on it, And he used that little puppy as a hammer, as a screwdriver, and a few other things that we will not mention. One tool does it all. And for the most part, that could work. But the truth of the matter is there might have been a little bit better way of doing it. And although effective for the most part, let's get the right tools in the right place. And let's really untangle this craziness together. Okay, so talking about that, let's get back to these revenues. So I think the first place that we need to do is we need to take a step back. We need to go back to basics, and we need to understand exactly what is revenue, exactly what are profits, and how in the world the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things, all of these hats work together. Revenues, pretty straightforward as we're looking at it. Revenues are simply the fees or money earned from providing the goods and services of your business. Pretty straightforward. It's the money coming in. These are your revenues. You make a sale, you get money. Great. That's your revenues. That's one piece of the puzzle. One piece of the puzzle. Revenues can increase. That's absolutely phenomenal. And as you bring more money in, that is great because that means you are growing. You are making progress. You are going forward. And that's a good thing. So taking a look at that, those are our revenues. So in theory, the revenues are coming in. The pink piggy there is collecting all of those revenues, and he's going to drop it right on into your bank account. And they're going to slide right on over there. So we have got our revenues being deposited into our bank account. Perfect. Great. So now I have all kinds of money to spend because I am increasing my revenues. I am bringing in that money. I am working my little tail feathers off to make sure that my revenues are increasing because it's all dropping into my bank account. Great. That's fabulous. My sales are increasing, my revenues are up, and therefore I have more money to spend, right? Yes, you do, except if that's the only thing you're considering, you might find yourself into a slight dilemma before very long. Because yes, sales are increasing, so in theory, you do have more money to spend. In reality, let's take a step back and let's kind of think about it because yes, you do, but do you know where your money's going? Those revenues are going in, but where's your money going? Do you know? If you don't, you're probably going to say, it's not in my account, so I have absolutely no idea. And that's not where we want you to be today. That is not the direction. See, Gizzy agrees. We do not want that to be the case. We do not want you to be questioning, where did my money go? Because it's not in my account. So instead, I want to challenge you. Yes, we understand what the revenues are coming in, but let's take it a step further. Let's really take a solid look at the profits. Because the bottom line is it's the profits is the extra money that you get to spend. Not all that extra you're bringing in, but the extra money. What do I mean by that? It's your profit. It's not really extra. It's the way you're looking at it. So if we're looking at profits, and we're bringing in, what is profits? Profits is the difference between the amount earned or the amount coming in and the amount spent. It turns into your bottom line. And your bottom line basically is I have X amount of dollars of income coming in. I have X amount of dollars of expenses going out. What do I have left to work with? Just think about it. There's all kinds of expenses out there that are part of running your business. You have potentially utilities. You have whatever you need to create your goods or services. So what does it cost you to provide that good and service or that merchandise? Where are you at? What does it cost for you to pay staff to be able to assist you with that? If you're on your own, what are you paying you? All of these are various expenses that are all rolled into that profit number. So revenues is the money coming in, but profit is the money coming in less the money going out, leaving us with a profit or loss to determine what we really can do. And I want you to be thinking about that. Because total revenue minus total expenses is definitely our profit. And what we want to do is we want to increase our profits. But there's two factors in there. There's a lot more, but let's take it back to the bare basics. Revenues and expenses. Do you know what those numbers are in your business? All too often, many small business owners don't know the answer to that. They don't have the right tool in the tool belt because they've got that hammer or that wrench and they're not quite using it to its fullest ability. And that's okay, because you know what? Numbers are not always the small business owner's thing. And that's okay. Grab the support that you need and surround yourself with folks that have strengths that complement yours. Because ultimately, if you're going to grow, you're going to scale, you're going to actually be able to move forward and be successful, you've got to get a handle on this, and you've got to know where your profits are at. And it's your time to excel. It's your time to excel those profits and actually start moving forward as we continue on this journey. So all of a sudden, let's take it back. I was out, the grocery store. I just had a couple of items. Just a couple of items. I'm like, great, I can get out of here really, really fast. So I go flying up because it was a really short line. Jumped into the line, and I realized really quickly why it was so short. The lady in front of me had the cart that was beaming over with stuff. Okay, well, I got two choices, because now I look around and all the other lines are completely utterly full too, and I'm like, now I understand why this one was so short. All right, so I have a choice here. And you know what? We are all faced with various situations, and we have a choice. It's how we're going to react. So I kind of take a look, and I'm like, well, I got two choices. I can get really frustrated. I could try to move on and be here longer, or you know what? Maybe I can make a new friend, because we're going to be here a little while. So I kind of gandered and was kind of looking. And of course, I couldn't miss the three big dog food bags on the bottom of the cart. I'm like, oh, that's a really, okay. Well, I can talk dogs all day long, because you've noticed, my dogs chime in here on a regular basis. Okay, no problem. I'll just make a new friend. I'm going to be here for a little bit anyway. So I politely asked, I see that you must have a dog there. She's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. I said, oh, what kind is it? Now, I don't know about you, but when I see like a 40, 50-pound dog food bag, which is what I do get. You guys saw two of my little children here earlier when we were talking. He's about 86 pounds, so he's a big boy. And the other one's 60 pounds. He's not too little either. So I'm thinking, yeah, it's going to be a nice big dog here, because you got big dog food. And I have to admit, her response kind of got me a little confused, because she said, oh, it's a Chihuahua. I'm a little confuddled here, but you know what? We're just going to put a smile on her face. I'm like, oh, you must really like that dog food, because that's the only thing I can think of saying. And her response completely just threw me for a loop. She's like, oh, no, he doesn't like dry food. He likes canned food, but the dry food was on sale. Think about that for a moment. How often, as business owners, do we get caught up in what's on sale? That next shiny object, that next new software, that next new tool, without really taking a step back. Do you need it? Is it something that's going to propel your business forward? Or is it something that's going to be sitting on the shelf and not being utilized? Because I don't know, if I have to be truthful, I've run into a few of those little Chihuahua moments myself. And it's human nature. And that's okay, because you can actually plan for that to be in the case, but you got to watch. And especially when you're growing and you're growing and you're growing and you see all this revenue coming in, it's really, really easy to get caught up in that squirrel moment and get the Chihuahua, the 50-pound dry dog food that it doesn't like because it likes canned food. Keeping that in mind. You might kind of explain when somebody asks you, where did your money go? It's not in the bank account. Maybe, just maybe, the expenses got a little bit out of control. Because the revenues are going up, you're not even thinking about it, because the revenues are coming in. Therefore, I have money to expend. The only problem is, the more money you spend, the higher your expenses get. And remember that profit number? Revenues in plus expenses out is what we truly have to work with. But guess what? A lot of those fixed expenses, the salaries, that software, taxes, insurance, all of them are not going away. They're still part of the expenses that are there, and now you just added a few extra because you got a little excited, and all of a sudden the expenses got a little out of control, which really boils down to maybe thinking about why the bank account is not increasing. So what can we do about it? What is one step that we absolutely can take to start getting a handle on this craziness? You guessed it. I want you to start tracking all your income and your expenses. Oh, good gravy. That's way too much work. That is overwhelming. I'm back to having that hammer, and I'm trying to put in a screw. I'm back to having that wrench, and I'm trying to pound in the nail. That's just too much work. I've got to focus on getting the revenues in. Okay, I don't disagree with that, but we still have to get them tracked. So support yourself with the right support. Get the right tools, the right things. There's all kinds of options. Whether it boils down to being pen and paper, that might be a little time consuming. Whether it's boiling down to a spreadsheet of some nature, a little bit better, or whether it's boiling down to a software such as QuickBooks. Get the right tools in your tool belt to be able to track your income expenses. And if you need some guidance or some assistance on that, great. Then get the support that you need. Partner with somebody who can help you get this under control, because you have to know what your income and your expenses are in order to really figure out what your profits are so that you can continue to grow, because otherwise you're going to be in a situation where your revenues are increasing and your bank account is decreasing. Definitely not where we're looking to go. And of course, what is the best system? I always have the same answer to this. The best system for you is really simple. It's the one that you're going to use. So whether that is doing it yourself in a software or partnering with someone who can assist you with that bookkeeping and those accounting services, because I offer accounting services as part of my business, I want you to not only do the record keeping, I want you to have a solid understanding of accounting services. And the best system for you might be partnering with somebody. The best system for you might be a QuickBooks. The best system for you might be an Excel sheet. It's going to be something that you are going to use. And it's vital to your success to actually have a system in place to do it. Because if you want to make sure that your profits are increasing, you've got to know what your revenue is. You've got to know what your expenses are so that you can actually do some basic math and take one minus the other and see what you got left to work with. Because it's those profit numbers that are going to be your paycheck. It's those profit numbers that are allowing you going to invest in your business into different software, into different ways of streamlining. But it's up to you. But if you don't know these numbers, you drop into that 82% that after a few years, it's almost impossible to be able to grow your business and sustain it. But it's your turn to excel, and we want to focus on excelling your profits, and we can do that. Because another area that I want to consider, and one that trips them up, so this is a little bit of bonus one. Any idea what the direct cost of producing the gold? You can read this, but here's the bottom line. It's your cost of goods sold. And too often, what ends up happening, if you have an actual product that you are selling, if it takes, even if you just look at a number, and it is actually taking you, you may sell it for, say, $1,000. What did it cost you in the first place? Did it cost you $200? Did it cost you $500? Did it cost you $800? What is the direct cost of producing that good that you are selling? What's the labor and the actual cost of the material? You need to know that number too. And this is a number that all too often gets dropped into kind of like the background, and you don't even think about it because part of the expense, but you need to know what these numbers are. So we actually need to know what it's costing us to produce that good. And that's called our cost of goods sold. Kind of an abstract number, but not really. And by knowing that number, then you can start figuring out what your expenses. So if you have sales and it costs you $500 to produce it, that's only $500 to work with. And then if you reduce that back down, what are your expenses? Now we're starting to look at profits, which is why sometimes it gets a little bit confusing. And that's another area that too often. So let's take a little closer look at this. As I was mentioning, if you sell it for $1,000, okay, that's your revenues. So your pink pig's got $1,000 in it. That's fabulous. But in order to get that goods and service, it costs you $500. So the truth of the matter is what actually hit your checking account, bottom line, what actually made it there, quote unquote, is the gross profit number. It's only $500. So that $1,000 you were counting on really isn't $1,000. It's only $500. Yet another reason why all too often, as your revenues increase, your bank account decreases. It's part of doing the business, and part of it is understanding that. Because when you grow and you're moving forward, that's fabulous, and growth is there, and you have your increased revenues, but keeping in mind your expenses increase as well, and they're in the form of possibly hours into those cost of goods sold. Because if you're growing that means you may have to have more hours. You may be having to bring on a staff. And if you're not budgeting and planning for that, your profit is definitely going to be decreasing. And that's just part of it. But if we go back to tracking and we go back to taking that step back and knowing what these numbers are, we can then make really good decisions, or at least educated decisions, in order to make sure our business remains profitable and we are able to grow and scale down the road. And Winston absolutely agrees as we're going. Because I don't want you looking like this when it comes to your bank account. When all of a sudden you're looking, you absolutely know when you have no idea where it's going. That's not where we want to go. And many of you are aware that Hammy's on a mission this year. And Hammy's mission, of course, is very simple. It's helping you to turn your Hamiltons into Benjamins. And how do we do that? So I want to take a moment here and I want to invite you to join me tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And I want to encourage you to excel your profits. And we're going to really start talking about 3 key factors and what to do about them. How do you overcome these challenges? We're going to focus in on 3 of them. And why revenues increase and bank accounts decrease. Because once we know what those factors are, we can set up a way to overcome them. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about tomorrow. So I'd love for you to join me at www.excelyourprofit.com. Register today so that you can get the link to join me. This is a live virtual event. And I'm looking so forward to being able to share this with you guys. And what can we do to excel our profits so that we can grow our businesses and move forward and let our business support our lifestyle? Because that's, after all, why we are in business. And there's some certain things that you really can do. And I really want to focus in on them. So I invite you to join me. Join me for Excel Your Profits, 3 key factors, why revenues increase and bank accounts decrease, so that you can overcome them. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop that out here as well into the links. Because as I said, it is your time to excel. Absolutely. It is time to inspire and ignite the possibilities. I'm dropping that link directly into the comments, and I want you to join me. I'd love for you to join us, share some of your feedback. It is going to be a live virtual event via Zoom. It is at 1 o'clock tomorrow. And of course, we're always here every single week at 11:30. And don't forget to mark those second Wednesdays of every month for our virtual lunch and learns. And next month, we just kind of wrapped up Canva and we are going to be looking at Microsoft Excel in 2 weeks. So really seeing how Excel can be one of those tools in your tool belt. So not only do we get a little bit of training, we get a little bit of network as well. But in the meantime, if you are ready to excel and inspire and ignite the possibilities when it comes to your profits, join me tomorrow, 1 o'clock, for Excel Your Profits, 3 key factors why your revenues increase and your bank account decreases. And what can you do about it to overcome that challenge that faces so many small business and entrepreneurs. It can be simple, and that's what we're going to do. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today on It's Time to Excel, because bottom line is understanding the difference between revenues and profits makes all the difference in your business. Thank you again, and join me tomorrow. Don't forget to grab that link that is in the chat, excelyourprofit.com, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everyone. And they say goodbye, too.